It's Saturday, and it is time for our Experts program on Power Talk Radio, 1460 and 101.1 FM. Luis Alvarez, CEO of the Alvarez Technology Group, joining us right now as we have an opportunity to talk technology with Luis. Good morning, Luis.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Doing really well. We've got a great topic to discuss today, and this one has to do with cybersecurity. It's a HIPAA security rule, but before we get to that, speaking of cybersecurity, a couple things that we want to warn people about are scams that are going on right now. And this is the time of the year when people are receiving their W-2s and their 1099s in the mail for work that they've done in the previous tax year. It's also the same time of the year, like in the first 3 months of the year, while everybody's trying to get their taxes done, the scammers are going to be approaching you, typically like smishing like a text to your phone.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine online, she said, hey, everybody, beware of a scam that I just received via a text message, supposedly from the IRS, saying that she had to call them right away to make a payment, or the sheriff was going to come to her house and arrest her. Well, a couple problems here is the IRS does not communicate with you via text, and if the IRS were going to quote-unquote arrest you, it wouldn't be the county sheriff, it would be a federal marshal, because the IRS is a federal agency. Sometimes these details are lost on a lot of people, and they get scared, and they'll go ahead and call the number and basically give all their money away because they don't know any better. And Luis, just as a thought, as an aside, one of the reasons why scammers can be very successful is the gullibility of people, but also the fact that civics education doesn't exist in America and hasn't for probably more than 40 years. If we had better civics education, the minute you receive something like this, you would look at it and say, wait a minute, county sheriff isn't going to work with the IRS. It's federal marshals that would come after me. This is crap. And you would delete it. Instead, people just get taken for a ride. But the other thing was the IRS would not have an email address for you to respond to that ends in hotmail.com.
Yeah. Or gmail.com.
Or gmail.com, any of those types of things. It's going to be a U.S. government extension. So that's one thing. Now, the other one that you have to watch out for is called the brushing scam. And I believe I've got a thing about it here because somebody sent me information of what's called the brushing scam. And this is a recent scam that's been showing up across the country. A brushing scam is when, say, you receive an unexpected gift or an item that you did not order by parcel delivery or the mail from, say, Amazon or another company. Example of gifts include like rings, bracelets, necklaces, Bluetooth speaker, etc. The gift will have the recipient's address, that's you, but will not include any sender's information or be from a known retailer. When the recipient opens the package to see what it is and possibly who sent it, there is a QR code to scan to find out who sent the gift. Now, once that code is scanned, all the information from your phone will be sent to the scammers. They are now receiving all the access to your phone and all the personal information and financial information that you might have stored or accessed via your phone. So the warning here is if you want to, keep the gift or throw it away, but whatever you do, don't scan the QR code.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in general, we tell people, unless you are sure that the QR code is legit, like you're at a conference and they have a poster up and say, hey, scan here for the agenda or something like that, that's okay. But if you see a random QR code, especially on a package that shows up unsolicited, yeah, you should avoid that at all costs because, to your point, those QR codes do more than just take you to websites. Sometimes they download malicious malware, and since you initiated it, you're essentially giving permission for that malware to infect your phone. So be cautious, and when you get one of those packages, be very, very careful about it.
Hey, before we hit the main topic, just another thing to mention to you is a lot of fallout coming from no pun intended, from the fire at the Moss Landing battery plant. And one thing that I saw this morning is that, and I don't know which assembly member in California has introduced this, but it's AB 303. And this is something that people will want to pay attention to because what AB 303 will do, if passed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor, it will take away from the California Energy Commission the prerogative that they have to cite battery-powered power plants wherever they think they would be most appropriate, and it would return that authority to local communities. So there's a possibility of a plant being built in Watsonville right now. Of course, we have the plant in Moss Landing that burned down that probably Vistra the owner of the plant, will want to rebuild, and other places in California, like I believe there is one planned for Morro Bay.
Down south.
On the site of an old, I guess it was a PG&E plant down there as well. At any rate, this bill would basically give to local communities control over the siting of these plants. So that's something to watch, and it's an upshot from what happened in Moss Landing last week.
Yep, I think it's good intentions, but really bad politics and bad policy.
Well, I can see where the problem would be, and probably the original reason why the legislature gave this authority in the first place to the CEC was they know full well that if you give the authority to local communities, there will be very few communities anywhere in California that will say, yeah, go ahead and build it here.
Yeah, it becomes a NIMBY issue, right?
Yeah.
Not in my backyard. Yeah. And so we need to do what's good for the community as a whole and not just individual communities.
Well, we'll see where this goes, but it's something for folks to keep an eye on. That's AB 303. All right, on to our main topic for this weekend, and that is a look at changes in the new HIPAA security law. And what exactly is HIPAA, Lewis?
So the HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability Act, and it's really something that has been around since 2005 to protect patient information and tell healthcare professionals and healthcare organizations how to handle the very sensitive nature of dealing with patient information. But in 2013, there was something introduced called the security rule, and this was intended to help doctors and hospitals, clinics, all sorts of healthcare providers, including dentists and everybody else, to implement security protections that were based on the technology in use at the time. Well, it's 11 years later, technology has moved on quite a bit, and so a new rule was introduced in early January that goes into effect later this year that really tightens the requirements and introduces a number of cybersecurity requirements for healthcare providers and also for any vendors that work with healthcare agencies, what are known as business associates. It's going to require them to do a lot of things that they currently are not required to do. Chief among them, an annual security risk analysis that's very, very specific. And if you don't do it, there are fines that, they finally put teeth into some of these security rules. Before, the original HIPAA didn't really have much in the way of teeth unless you actually had a breach or an incident of some sort. This one allows for periodic and unannounced assessments by the feds of medical organizations to see if they're following these rules. So if you're a healthcare professional, if you work in a healthcare environment, whether that is dental or any traditional primary care, that sort of stuff, you are going to have to tighten it up by the end of this year or face the consequences.
Wow. And by the way, they're going to require vulnerability scanning at least, every 6 months and a penetration test at least annually.
Yep.
They're going to require the encryption of data at rest and in transit. Also, MFA is going to be required now, multi-factor authentication. And one of the most important things, and it would be surprising, I think, to any of us to learn that this was not yet a requirement, and that is time limits on removing a former workforce member's access to protected health information and restoring systems after incidents. Apparently, at this point, there is nothing written in stone, Lewis, that says that, let's say somebody who worked for a healthcare provider that has access to HIPAA-protected information, they leave that job, they're terminated, and there was not necessarily any time limit as to when you needed to delete that person's access from the system. Now, typically, one of the first things you do when you separate someone from a company is their ability to access the company's technical resources is cut off, usually the morning of that they get rid of that person. So it's kind of been something that best practices say you do this, you don't need a law to do it, but apparently we need a law or a rule because there must be some companies that weren't doing it and sensitive information was still available to those who'd been separated. Yeah,
and it's none of these things would, if you were a patient and you saw the list of things that are required, you'd be all for it, to protect your information. But unfortunately, a lot of healthcare professionals look at cybersecurity as one of those things they begrudgingly do because they see it as an expense affecting their bottom line. But the reality is it's important that we take care of our patients and the information that we have from those patients as much as we possibly can.
Luis Alvarez, CEO of the Alvarez Technology Group, joining us today to talk technology and the latest news in technology. This last story from Healthcare IT Today, if you want to read up on that story, healthcareittoday.com. And online, you'll find the Alvarez Technology Group group at alvareztg.com. At AlvarezTG is their X handle. And Louis, the toll-free number for the I-Team.
Give us a call at 866-78-I-TEAM. That's 866-784-8326.
And let's look ahead to Monday when something super fast might be coming back.
Yeah, if you are a fan of flying and you want to get there faster, tune in Monday to hear about the comeback of the commercial supersonic jet.
All right, that's on Monday's program starting in the 8 o'clock hour here on Power Talk Radio. Louis, thank you so much for your time and have a great weekend.
You too, my friend. Take care.